Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of What Drives You. I am Carl Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host who's shaming me, mocking me, whatever. Stan Windhorn. How are you, Stan?
I'm doing great, Carl. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. We have got an interesting topic. This one might get us into some trouble.
Well, I don't know about trouble, but it's definitely important topic. It's
Important, touchy,
touchy,
mhm,
sensitive, right?
dangerous.
Could be dangerous. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So today we are at episode cooking here along. We're racing towards 100, Stan, pretty quick, but we're at episode 72, and today our topic is we've done one of these. I think this is our second What Drives You Crazy About. Our topic today is religion. So
Yeah.
this one could be, let me give a little context. So I grew up in a very, very strict, fundamental Protestant home. And Stan, my brother from another mother, was actually a PK. We call him in the club a PK. That's a pastor's kid. And
Preacher's kid.
I go pastor, but preacher, fine.
Yeah.
Uh, Tell us about that, Stan. What was it like to be a preacher's kid?
You know, in a lot of ways, so yes, there was a lot of our life that was based around the church, and a lot of our family friends were church members and things like that. But all in all, I don't feel like I grew up that much differently than the rest of my friends in the neighborhood. And, for the most part, I wasn't treated any differently by the kids in the neighborhood. Although that does remind me of a story that I thought of, I think, just today. But when I moved from the Grand Rapids, Michigan area to Mattoon, Illinois, right in the middle of eighth grade, my homeroom teacher said, "Children, we've got a new member of our class, and his father's a minister." And I'm like, wah, wah, wah. So kids were initially a little worried about hanging out with me because I don't know, they thought I was going to be a weird kid or something. But no, there was a lot of advantages to being the preacher's kid. Um, and there were some disadvantages too, but I don't really honestly think I grew up in an overly oppressive religious situation. It was definitely part of our lives, but it wasn't, well, there was definitely some things that I would do differently if I was the parenting in that point in time. But what about you? You said you grew up and it was pretty hardcore.
I mean, it was just very conservative. So basically, we were taught that alcohol was bad, playing cards were bad, movies were bad,
Oh
um,
boy.
dancing was bad. It was pretty strict.
Wow. You grew up in Footloose.
A little bit of footloose action, very legalistic. And we were when we talked about doing this episode, we had actually were talking about possibly saying what drives you crazy about church, but it's really not so much about church, in my opinion. You may vary. It's more about the religion, which to me, let's define that a little bit. Maybe Stan. My definition of religion is a man-made organization entity that is not may have a faith component, may have a community church component to it, but it's really a set of rules around how to observe that faith. That's my opinion on religion,
Okay.
which is why I'm not a religious person because I don't like the rules that have been made, whatever denominations, whether it's Catholic, Protestant, Pentecostal, Baptist,
Huh.
whatever. Those rules,
Well,
which is what I grew up with, are just, I don't think what the man upstairs intended.
so what you're saying is that you're a believer, you have faith in the man upstairs, as you have said, but you're not a big fan of the institution, maybe.
Yeah, if I look back and I want to say my faith is around, the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that type of uh, belief system. I don't think. I mean, if you look back at the early church, when
How
after
did
when
you do that? You did like
Well, it was the
What
Trinity. It was a
what
triangle.
was that? Oh, it was a triangle.
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't a cross, your chest deal. Um, but I, there weren't. It was home churches, small groups of people who gathered and took care of each other. Right. If you were poor, someone helped you out. If you were hungry, someone helped. It was these small communities in homes. There wasn't a church, right? There wasn't a building. We didn't go there once a week and put on our fancy. I mean, you just lived life together in community. That to me is beautiful. A church where you got to go and get dressed up and shave your face and all the other stuff, all the rules that we put around this thing, all this religious uh, constraints is just, I don't think what was intended. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think we're pretty close to being on the same page with that. I happen to think that a lot of things that I was taught in the Lutheran Church, which I don't know if you know the history of this, but the Lutheran Church was the first Protestant church, in other words, the first branch to break off of the Catholic Church. Martin Luther, who was a Catholic monk, didn't like a lot of stuff that was going on there, kind of like the conversation we're having right now. Um, but a lot of the things that are taught, I think, are really good things that humans should live by and stuff. Where I go sideways on organized religion, and I'm going to be very clear, all of them, in my opinion, all of them, not just the Christian religions. It's not just Catholic or Lutheran or Baptist or Presbyterian or Muslim or whatever it is. There's so much hypocrisy that it drives me insane. And I should say it's what drives me crazy. And the death and destruction throughout history that continues to this day in the name of God, who the God I believe in, first of all, isn't short of cash, mister. That's a quote from a U2 song. But there's just no way someone like Jesus or Allah or any of these prophets and holy men, there's no way they're looking at this going, yep, that's what I meant. Go out and kill the people who aren't doing things the way we do. So I think it's been human nature to take things like religion and use it to control the masses. And so many of these have made up their own versions. Like, all right, you grew up in a Christian home, and so did I. My parents didn't have a problem with playing cards. I got to go to the school dances. So, who invented that those two things were wrong? Some dude somewhere. Some guy named George said, you know what? I'm not very good at cards. I think we should make that one a no-no too. Whatever. Uh, so
Well, and
yeah,
that's
that's
that's where
that's
I
my
got to just.
issue with organized religion, the institutions, because they're just rife with hypocrisy, and it is not what the God I believe in would be in favor of. How's that?
That's pretty good. Yeah,
There's exceptions to everything, and there are really, really good people in organized religion. My mother's one of them. She walks her talk every single day. She spends every day about her faith. She spends every day helping others. She walks her talk. There's not a hypocritic bone in her body. I think your mom's much the same,
yeah.
and not just my mom. There's lots of others. But these televangelists and these guys who they're stealing money from the rich and the old. You too, once again. Um, it's just, I mean, come on. It's just there's just no way. Jesus was born in a manger amongst, and he hung out with the sick and the old and the lepers, and not once did he buy himself a new jet with his people's money. That drives me insane.
Did they have jets back then?
How do you? I don't know. Maybe.
Chariot. I knew he didn't buy a new chariot.
He did not buy a new chariot or a new donkey or anything. An
No,
upgraded donkey saddle, nothing.
nothing.
But can I tell you a story? And so I got to go on a trip when I was 17 or 18 years old. It was called the Holy Land Tour. and it was super fascinating. We spent one day in Greece. We spent 4 or 5 days in Israel and then some time in Rome. And it was just fascinating. And all of these stories that I learned, all of these Bible stories really hit home for me just because there was things that just made sense. And I'll give you one perfect example. Is we were at a site on the Dead Sea where the guide was saying that this is where they believe the feeding of the 5,000 happened, where for those of you who don't know, Jesus was speaking and there was 5,000 people and he ended up feeding them all with a miracle uh, of taking some loaves of bread and some fish, and somehow he made it so that all 5,000 people were fed. But here's what fascinated me about this site is it was like a natural amphitheater. And I never thought about this before. Oh, he fed 5,000 people. Didn't think about it. How in the world could he speak to 5,000 people before microphones and amplifiers and big speaker systems and stuff? But it was this natural amphitheater where we could hear sheep buying, like a mile away. And I'm like, oh man, that makes so much sense. So there was a lot of things like that that was really, really super cool. I'm going to tell you one other story that happened on that trip was when we were in Rome. We had a choice of either going to see a fountain or something, or go see the Pope John Paul II, speak. And I'm like, he's not my Pope, but all right, I'll choose the Pope. And so big room just filled with people, and I was right by the aisle, and the aisle maybe was, I don't know, 15 feet wide. And I don't know how long it was, but if he would have just walked slowly down the aisle, it would have taken him, a minute. But it took 45 because he just went back and forth and just touched people and all this stuff. And I don't know if I've ever showed you this picture, but I've got a picture of Pope John Paul where I literally could touch him on the shoulder. That's how close I was to him. Ironically, that was the same day John Lennon was shot. In fact, when we were waiting for the Pope, is when we heard the news that John Lennon was assassinated. And speaking of religion, he had some interesting thoughts on that, didn't he?
Yep.
But then just a couple weeks later is when Pope John Paul was also shot at. But the way he was moving around, there was something about him, Carl. And again, I don't want to say I was anti-Catholic, but I wasn't a Catholic. But there was just this like aura of peace about him or something. There was something that really, really had this effect on me, and I just think he was, there was something very special spiritually about the guy. But when we go back to hypocrisy, there's not anybody in this world who's going to convince me that no matter how great of a pope he wasn't aware of the fact that there was pedophiles all over in his organized religion. And shame on all of them for letting that go on for as long as it did. You can't tell me they didn't know about it. They covered it up, and that's not what Jesus would have done. So it really kind of taints that wonderful memory I have of this spiritual leader because I don't believe that he didn't know about it either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my opinion is he for sure knew. They all knew, and obviously they're paying for it now. So,
Are they?
well, I don't know that
Are
you can
they?
ever. I mean, they're paying out sums of money to people. I don't
Yeah.
know that that
Okay.
fixes what was done to them or heals them in any way, shape, or form, but at least there's some
Yeah.
type of consequence. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I don't know that there's enough consequence
probably
for
not.
for for hurting a child. There's just nothing about it that I think is redeemable in any way. I don't care how much money is involved. And guess what? They got plenty of money, and people still give them plenty of money. Did you know that Martin Luther, one of the main reasons he broke away from the Catholic Church, is what were they calling it? There's a term for it, but basically they decided, hey, go do whatever you want. If you want to be forgiven, give us some money, and okay, now you're forgiven. It's basically they were charging to have people's sins forgiven.
Well,
And and
tithing
that
is one thing, but then there was
no,
probably
that's not tithing. No,
some sort of payoff. I forget what they call it. I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, I want to meet the guy who invented tithing.
Yeah, I think there is some principle in the Bible. I forget where it's at, but anyway, I
Give
mean,
Caesar what is his.
well, that's one of them. But there was a tenth of this and a tenth of that, whatever, whatever. But no, I think really the point we were trying to get in this episode, a point we were trying to get across in this episode was really just the hypocrisy of the rules that these imperfect people are trying to impose on the rest of us to, to keep us in line when whether like you said whether it's Jesus or that was not none of these guys intend, and specifically where my belief is with Jesus, he's about love, man. He's not about judgment, he's not about shame, he's not about any of that. He's
He's not about flying airplanes into buildings of people who don't believe the same way you believe? Huh.
he's not into that either. No, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't
So
believe Allah was either.
but that being said, it does drive us a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely it
So,
does.
can I just tell you an opposite kind of a story?
Sure.
So, there's a minister named Rick Warren. He started Saddleback Church. Started off in the cafeteria of the Mission Viejo High School. Then it grew into the gym, and now he's got 20 acres of prime Southern California real estate. It's a mega church. Um, Rick Warren then wrote a book called The Purpose Driven Life. It was a huge, big seller, and he made millions and millions of dollars, which is great. He's an author with a best-selling book. He deserves every penny of that. But this church got so big that there was lots of pastors and there was lots of things. I started having a problem with it when it got really big like that. But the last time I ever saw Rick Warren speak is he was in front of the congregation at one of like 7 services that they have now every Sunday. Dressed like he always was, blue jeans and a Hawaiian shirt, much like the one you're wearing right now,
Thank you.
Carl Bauer.
Thank you.
But basically, he came up. First of all, he never bought a newer, bigger house, a new fancy car, or any of this other stuff. In fact, his message then was, we've been blessed with this windfall of all this money, so we've decided to do some things. And he had talked about some separate sort of charity that his wife and he were really into. They were going to donate a bunch of money there. But this is what got me is he said, we have decided that from this day forward, we're no longer going to take a salary from Saddleback Church. And they're going to pay back to the church every penny in salary he got since the day he started the church. Now, a pastor has to get paid. That's their job. You're running a big organization, they have to get paid. So I don't have any problem with them making a living, maybe even a comfortable living. It's when it gets obsessive that I think it's crazy. But the fact that he was willing to give all the money back and never take another penny from the church, I'm like, now that's the kind of guy I'll listen to. That's the kind of guy that I'll follow. So, Rick Warren, yeah, my respect, man. I wish there were more people in your position who thought the way you do.
Yeah, but and I think Stan Heat, I love the book, read the book, bought the book, have it somewhere on one of these shelves here. Um, he would probably be the first to tell you that he's not perfect, you
Well,
know,
yeah.
and he's by the grace of God, he is where he is and blessed the way he's blessed. And that again, to your point, that's a humility that I think a lot of times is lost in religion. So we got the we got the warring thing that's an issue with me in religion. We got the hypocrisy and the money. I mean, there's just so many things, but it's good to hear, and maybe that's a great ending for our session here today. Our episode today is just there's a humble guy who paid back and gave back because he was blessed and was able to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to be clear. I don't think everybody who's involved in organized religion is a hypocrite, but I do think that it is pretty rampant. Not just the leaders who are taking advantage and taking money and or even worse, using it to damage their neighbors or neighboring countries. These wars in the name of religion is just such a heartbreaker. There's plenty of really good people who are very sincere about their religion, and those people, you have my respect.
Well, Stan, as always, thank you. Thank you for your words of wisdom and your insights, because I think they're wise, and they're definitely something. Sometimes I think both of us say things that others won't. They think it, but they won't say it. So it's a good place to vent. And hey, leave us a comment below if you have any opinions on this. I'm sure you do. If you want to fire at us, go ahead. But again, as people of faith and men of faith that just aren't religious, I hope there's more humble and loving folks out there in every sect, division, denomination that can
Yep.
continue the good work of the good principles of faith. So next time, Stan. Oh, wait, were we gonna promote some? Oh, that's on our next episode. Never mind. We'll get it next time.
You're on point today, bro. You're just I
I'm on semi vacation, so my brain's a little elsewhere. So
I
catch you next
see.
time. Thanks everybody for joining us on What Drives You. Take
Be
care.
good people.
It will be what? What? Say that again.
Be good people. Be nice to each other.
Oh, there you go. Be nice to
Be
each
good
other. You
humans.
you were changing it up, so we're
Be good humans.
there. You go. See you, man.
That's it.